Welcome, everyone, to what's new in 7.1 here in the webinar. I'm Jeff Darrington, and we have Seth Goldhammer, our Vice President of Product here at Graylog. Welcome, Seth.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward.
Awesome. Let's get into this. What we'll cover today, we'll introduce in a demo and have an introduction for 20 minutes, and we'll follow up with a Q&A for 10 minutes at the end. So let's get started. First, what I'd like to go over with you are some of the challenges that we're hearing from our customers. Every lean security and IT ops team we talk to is dealing with the same four problems, not inspirationally, but right now, every single day. First, data growth without control. Log volumes keep climbing while headcount and budgets stay flat. 65% of organizations say that growth now outpaces their ability to store and manage it. Your team is spending cycles on infrastructure, not investigations. Second, tool sprawl with zero clarity. The average SOC runs more than 30 tools. Only 37% say those tools actually integrate. That means analysts are switching screens, losing context, and rebuilding the same picture manually on every single shift. Third, AI that creates work instead of cutting it. More than half of IT leaders say that AI tools add complexity without clear value. Lean teams cannot afford to babysit another black box system that fires noise and demands constantly tuning just for function. And fourth, lean teams with impossible expectations. 71% of security teams are understaffed. Average alert triage is over 6 hours. These teams are not failing because they lack skill. They're failing because the tools are not built for them. The result? Real threats go undetected, investigations get built by hand, and every compliance deadline is a sprint. The opportunity? Lean teams do not need a 40-person SOC or an enterprise SIM budget to win. They need one platform that detects threats automatically, builds investigations without manual assembly, and removes the busy work entirely. That is what Graylog 7.1 delivers. So, kicking it off, the very beginning, our insights to action, how we get you the things you want to use in Graylog more quickly. Middle of the field, how would we do this by removing the administrative work, managing Graylog, and having you use Graylog for the things that you want to use it for? And the final goal, for those things that you want to use Graylog for, how do we enable you to get to your goals more quickly? We will get to this on the how, the why, and the what in the product demo. We continue to invest in open and commercial license offerings, and we continue to support the open community. Seth will highlight what is required as he presents new capabilities in the demo. With that, let's get into this. Seth, I'll let you take over to the demo.
Awesome. So let's start off with some features that are available to all of our customers, both open and commercial, starting with our cluster configuration page. One of the things that you'll notice is really getting more dense, less scrolling, and getting the right information to you that help you to understand decisions that you might need to make or actions that are required of you for your solution, both on the administration side and on the analysis side. So for example, our cluster configuration page now has a more condensed view to show your Graylog nodes, your data nodes, and now your MongoDB nodes all in one place. So I can see all of the health of my environment. And if there is an action to take place, I'll get information at a top location that will provide me some information I can do. You'll also see this as we go into our inputs page. Again, very much more condensed view of our condensed page. Previously, you might have to scroll. We had a lot of information available to you, but not necessarily important for what you needed to know at that particular moment. So that information is still available, which you can expand the row to see. But by default, we're going to show you, hey, here are all the inputs. Notice that it's warning me I have some inputs that are in a stop state. These become filters that filter specifically to those that are in that not running state where I might need to now take an action, such as start that input. As you're looking at this table, you may notice we've added a lot of capability now to our standard table across many different places in the product where you see this. I can pick up these columns now, move them around. I can resize these columns. It will remember how you left this table when you come back if you happen to leave the page. As well as we've added much more filterability to our tables, obviously based on the appropriate content for each table. The other thing you'll notice here is that we added our forwarder inputs right next door to our inputs. So if you do have an enterprise license and you are using forwarders, you don't have to jump back and forth. If you're dealing with inputs, you might also be dealing with forwarder inputs. They're right here now side by side. You'll also see this condensed view here if I go over to our streams page, you're going to see that our streams page, one of the things we is not only just condensed, but we've removed a lot of the visual noise. Instead of showing you lots of zeros here, which kind of then hid the story of what might be happening, we're just omitting those zeros so that we can pop out those that are populated with information or in a particular state that requires your attention. You'll also see here that for some of these rows, like stream roles, I can actually perform an action right here in the table without having to go to a separate page, such as remove or go to edit or even quick add a rule that's appropriate for this particular stream. The other capability that we've added to automate some things here for yourself. If I go to indexes, this would be kind of a funny way to show this feature, but I'll explain why. In the restored archive index set, which is available to our enterprise security customers, you can see this option to automate shard management. I can't show that in the product, but for all of our users, open enterprise and security, where we now have the opportunity to, for your live indexes, to dynamically allocate the shards. What that means is that we look at the number of Graylog nodes you have, the memory available on the system, and as those things may change, reallocate a number of shards appropriate for your environment, which optimizes the performance for both a read and a write perspective. For those customers with an enterprise license, you can choose to turn that on even for your restored archive indexes so that you get, again, that same level of performance increase, I should say. And speaking of archives, let me go ahead to the archive backend management just to show off another capability here, which is adding Azure Blob. So we added Azure Blob support for archives, our warm tiers, and for data lake, which allows, as you can see here, whether we're talking about a local file system, AWS, Google, or Azure, really covering all of the three major cloud storage providers so that you have the optionality of whatever's best and appropriate for your organization. Now, let me shift gears to the analysis side of Graylog. And to shift gears, I'm going to show you a nifty new tool that we've added, which we call Quick Jump. What's great about Quick Jump, as you notice, I clicked on the magnifying to get to this. I can actually also just use a keyboard shortcut to jump to that and now start typing. In this case, I want to create a new event definition. You notice that it's showing me all of the different navigation items. So if I don't remember where something lives in the navigation tree, I can now start to type this. And you'll also notice that it's not just main pages. I can get right to, in this case, the create event definition wizard right into that particular part of the product that I wanted to get to from the get-go. What I want to show here is a couple things. If I click on the condition for our enterprise customers, we actually introduced a new anomaly event type for enterprise customers called log volume anomalies. This allows you to, as it states, I can look for fluctuations both up and down in the expected log volume. So this is using a new baseline capability analytic technique to be able to recognize, again, there might be times where a spike is really concerning, and maybe a time when something gets too quiet is equally as concerning, be able to recognize that. And for our security customers, we're using that baseline capability to now recognize impossible travel. If I see an authentication in New York and immediately followed by an authentication in Paris, well, I know that someone can't move that fast. So we are able to recognize that, again, using this baseline analytical technique, where all I need to worry about is what do I consider to be impossible travel? And don't worry, if you're in the US like me, you can set this to miles. All right, so now that we've covered some of the anomaly detection capabilities we introduced, Let me now show one other feature available to our security users for our asset events. Now, our asset events existed prior to 7.1. They allowed me to recognize when an asset, which is a user or a machine, all the identifiers for that user or machine, when multiple activities corroborated something concerning was happening, would elevate the risk score for that asset and now generate an event when we surpass a particular threshold. What we've added to this event type is the ability to now add categories. So whether we're talking about users or our systems categories, we can now nuance, hey, for our very targeted users, maybe we want a lower threshold where we want to generate that event. Or if this was a lab environment, maybe we're not worried about the threshold much at all. So we can have that type of nuance where we can either change the threshold or for which types of systems or users we want to generate this event for. And just as important, if I have a user with a very high risk score, most likely the first action I'm going to take is to build an investigation. Let's start looking at those events. Well, actually, I can now have Graylog build that investigation for me, which allows me just immediately get to, all right, here are all the activities that have corroborated this high risk score where I can now start to perform my triage and investigation. So let's see what that looks like. When I go over to the alerts and events page, one, you'll notice we're using that same table where I can pick up columns, I can resize, etc. And well, I have now another option here, as you see with this, I can click down on the row and get to what we call slice by. So not just sorting, but slicing by. Well, what does slice by means? And this capability is actually available to open enterprise and security. You'll just find that the columns that you have available to slice by is going to expand as I have different license types. So for example, if I want to slice by, the status to get kind of a understanding of, new versus investigating versus false positive, that's one way I can use this. But this is a very traditional way of sorting through my alerts and events, where I have to go event by event by event and try to mentally connect how is this event related to the other. And so as we just talked about, well, maybe a faster way to triage is to go through by the associated assets, where I can now go, hey, asset by asset, and now I have the group of activities that have contributed to that asset. And if I'm using that automated investigation, well, now I can start with a investigation slice by, which now allows me to immediately get to all of those activities that Graylog may have automatically put into an investigation for me, where I can perform that investigation. One thing you'll notice is that these descriptions show a lot more context than they previously used to. We've added what are called event summary templates, which you are able to use, whether a Graylog Open, Enterprise, or Security. You can add these event summary templates using the variables from the actual event that is being generated. With a security license, with our Illuminate content, we'll populate examples of those event summary templates into our illuminated content. And as you can see here, we're getting immediately, without even having to click on the row and drill down into this particular event, already kind of the system, the user, maybe processes, etc., already without having to kind of get into all of the groups and information into the actual event definition, the event that fired itself. Now that I'm now that I'm triaging this entire investigation at once, we can take advantage of our bulk actions, and you'll see that this is going to look very different. When I do a replay search, I'm going to have, here are the different events that I'm triaging. We have a new context sidebar for alerts, for asset information, and for the investigation. So I have a consistent place on the right where I can get kind of the rest of the context. Hey, what was this actual definition? What was it looking for? What are procedures that I should follow to investigate this? And so I can continue my investigation, going through the different steps here to follow, continuing my with the context following me as I go along. That also allows me to bounce back to, again, the investigation details itself. Perhaps I want to change the user that this is assigned to. Oh, this is actually more for about a Linux system and I'm the Windows person. Let me get that to the Linux expert on my team. Or perhaps I want to change the priority or the status. And of course, you could quickly get to the full investigation page for those with our security license, where now I can get to that timeline view of what has all transpired, what is the scope, the impact, are there areas of the investigation that still need to be fleshed out? And we've merged all of the event procedures into a single location where I can continue to, perform the searches that are appropriate for this investigation to run this fully to ground. And one last bonus feature I would like to show is what we call collector. Now, what is collector? This is an opportunity for us to actually collect operating system logs without having to deploy a sidecar, without having to manage Elastic Beats or some other third-party ability to collect from that system. So this gives you an opportunity to deploy. You'll notice that this is a beta feature. So keep that in mind. It is in beta, but we want your feedback. We want you to use collector, collect from Linux logs, collect from Windows logs. This is going to expand to Mac. It's going to have other capabilities to even look at configuration state in the future. But we want your feedback on your experience deploying these collectors and managing the fleets of collectors and how that experience is to bring in logs. Our goal being that we really have streamlined this from the current experience you have. We know that there are complexities when you're using Sidecar plus third-party beats or other types of components that are required to collect logs. So the goal here is that we're really really reducing the work, the complexity for you to be able to perform that. So invite you to get your feedback. Thank you.
And that finishes the webinar. Thanks for watching.